my name's Ben. I'm a wheelchair user for the last 13 years because I had a spinal cord injury back in 2010 where I broke my neck at C7 level and became quadriplegic, the only person to ever be a national champion both in able-bodied and then disabled as well. The main thing that I think most people will know me for is probably Adapt to Perform.
My YouTube channel got nowhere near where Ben's did.
I also travel the world full-time.
You're fucking nuts.
Their culture traditionally, if you're disabled, is considered that you must have sinned in a previous life. How can I go for a poo anywhere?
Today's guest, Ben Clark, is an adaptive coach and personal trainer, best known for his brand Adapt to Perform. He's also a travelling nomad at the moment, visiting several different countries and exploring the world as a wheelchair user. It was a great conversation today to have with Ben, particularly as it combined two of my loves, fitness and travel. I learned so much from this episode, guys, and I really do hope you enjoy it. So please sit back, relax and enjoy. Welcome to the Not Quite Podcast. I'm Charlie Randall. Let's get ready to rewrite the rulebook. Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Ben with us. Ben, do you just want to quickly introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are, what you do, and a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Ben. You might be able to see, I'm a wheelchair user from the UK. I'm a wheelchair user for the last 13 years because I had a spinal cord injury back in 2010 where I broke my neck at C7 level and became quadriplegic. At the time, I was a professional swimmer, training lots. So it was a big shock and a big change going from training 20 plus hours a week to then suddenly being lying in a bed, staring at a ceiling for like a couple of weeks and then slowly but surely moving again. And then after that, I continued my swimming. I became national champion, being the only person to ever be a national champion, both in able-bodied and then disabled as well.
Wow,
which is
that's amazing.
a small thing. But yeah, then my swimming career came to a natural conclusion, which we can talk about a bit more later on. And I moved into the realm of coaching, started coaching other swimmers who wanted to do similar career paths to what I was doing, which they have done. Some of them have gone on to represent their country and gone to the Olympics, which has been an amazing big part of their journey. But then outside of that, that's again in the past. I've now moved on to other things with the main thing that I think most people will know me for is probably Adapt to Perform, which is my YouTube channel / Instagram / every other social media out there, which I focus predominantly on adapted fitness for wheelchair users. So just showing people what they could do in the wheelchair, strength, cardio, yoga, the whole range of things and that. So yeah, that's what I'm probably mostly known for. But at the same time, I also travel the world full time since September, which is it's kind of weird saying that because I don't think I've said it out loud before. But yeah, currently I'm on country number. I can't remember now. It's like number 15 in the last since September, and there's no signs of stopping yet. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, that's a brief rundown.
Crazy. I mean, first of all, I'm mortified at the fact I never knew that swimming was your background because it's one of my main backgrounds, and I'm surprised that we've never crossed paths.
Yeah. Well, the majority of my swimming career is definitely pre-injury.
Yeah.
I had a scholarship to a school down in Devon, and I was training there. It was like wake up, swim, school, swim, gym, all that stuff. And say like 20 plus hours a week. So that's the majority of it. And it definitely slowed down after the injury for many reasons. I continued competing for a couple of years. As I say, became national champion, but my love for the sport kind of dropped after the injury, just not being able to swim like I used to before. So that's quite a big change, and it was kind of a bit frustrating, really, if anything.
I completely understand that.
Yeah, quite as I used to be able to.
But that's mad. Small world. I mean, yeah, I started my swim career. Well, I was a proper, like, stereotypical, saw London 2012, and then basically went, I want to do that. And my dad looked at me. I just had a major back surgery and looked at me like, "You're fucking nuts." But yeah, sure, why not? Let's give it a go. Let's see how far we can go. I only got up to regionals. I'm not a champion in anything. My only thing is I still hold. I don't know because I haven't been in the space for so long. But at the time, I held the county record for my
Nice.
category in breaststroke, so I was quite proud of that. But that was my only claim to fame, I think.
Awesome. It's funny you say about 2012 because that was kind of what I was aiming for back in
Mm.
previous things. That's what I was going for. So if I hadn't had my injury, maybe I would have been the person to inspire you to swim.
That's great. It's crazy. It's such a small world. So then I'm guessing from that journey, that was what sort of inspired. Obviously, as you said, you've always had a love of fitness, and then once your swimming career came to a conclusion, you sort of dived straight into the sort of more training element and building adaptive performance. Is that right?
Yeah. So like ever since like even before I was a swimmer, I was always into sport and fitness and all that kind of stuff as well. This was like early at like 8 years old sort of age, and I was captain of
Yeah,
my
yeah,
football team and all that kind of stuff as well. And so just the typical person who just any sport, pick it up and it's super
yeah.
easy. Yeah. School on the other hand, not so much, but uh, yeah, all the sports side of it, that was my area of expertise as such. And um, during when I was swimming as well, one of the things I liked the most about it was the strength and conditioning side, the stuff outside the pool. I felt that made
Yeah.
like such a big difference to my racing and my development in those like teenage years. So I like latched onto it and started to learn more about it and really got passionate about learning how to progress in multiple different ways through fitness and exercise. So yeah, that the love of it sort of sparked in those early days, and yeah, it's sort of just it's grown and grown over the years, and it really exploded when I started teaching other people. Because as an athlete, one of the things that you never really think about is you never want to be a coach. You kind of always you want to be an
Yeah,
athlete, right?
yeah,
Like obviously I don't think this anymore because I am a coach, but I used to think like coaches were
yeah.
failed. I used to think coaches were failed athletes basically, and they just wanted to
Yeah.
stay in the sport. So obviously I don't think that anymore. That was my younger naive self. And like once I started giving the advice to other people and helping them out, it like just accelerated like my love of the fitness side of it and helping people out.
What made you dive into like social media and using that as a platform to bring adaptive perform to sort of to life, for want of a better word?
Yeah, so like I'll be totally honest, like I don't like using social media. Like if I wasn't doing adapt form, I just wouldn't be doing social media.
Fair enough.
I'll be you wouldn't even know I exist. But like I'm happy to use it to promote what I'm doing, like because I really believe in like what I'm doing with adaptive perform and helping people out and helping them to get fitter and healthier, no matter what their circumstances are. So it's kind of like I use the social media as a tool to help people, and it's such a fantastic way of reaching a huge amount of people. Because before I started doing this, I was looking for myself and I couldn't find anything out there in terms of
Yeah.
exercise videos, and there was loads on the YouTube if you were able-bodied, but nothing out there if you were disabled. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, someone's got to do this. So I've got the love of it, like so I just bought a camera and just started filming on YouTube, and then putting out videos. Got a really great response, and not just from like the Western world as well. I got it from like India and the Middle East and Indonesia and all that kind of stuff. And I just reached so many people everywhere around the world, and people that like don't have the same healthcare systems we have in the UK and access to stuff. And they were like, "This is amazing! I can do stuff at home, and I can't get out the
Yeah.
home. So it's like this is great that
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
do it." So it kind of just evolved from there, and then the natural progression is just to join every social media platform and just spam everybody with loads of fitness content.
What's really interesting is how similar, like, so that's how I sort of came into the social media space at the time. Similar to you, finished my swimming career. Then I got involved in like the fitness YouTube space of like just watching fitness YouTubers and got sucked into that world. And then kind of had the same thought as you of no one's really doing this from a disabled person's perspective. So let me
Yeah,
just give it a go. I mean, my YouTube channel got nowhere near where Ben's did, but that was what spiraled then more into me doing some more of the lifestyle content, because I realized there was so many topics that I had like really strong views on, and things I wanted to speak about that weren't necessarily in the realm of disability and fitness. So that was where NQPC became less so NQPC fitness and became more just NQPC. But it's really interesting to see like how many people at that time were like just thought that there was no one really doing it. Obviously, you were probably one of the first that I became aware of. Plus, as well, now I feel like the community is so much more connected. Like everyone knows everyone, and it's spiraled into this big thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like the power of social media is like absolutely crazy. Like when I first had my injury, that like social media wasn't really a thing. Like Instagram hadn't released when I had my injury, like which is crazy to think, making me feel quite old. So it's like that's weird to think that like if I had this information and resources when I was first injured, like I would have absolutely loved it and been like, yeah, this is great, and I'd probably still gone and done the same things I'm doing. But like, I'm glad to be sort of like pushing it forward and help, being there. And like, I love it when other people do what I'm doing as well. Like, yes, more people should be doing this. There's hundreds of thousands of influencers and people putting out content for everybody. Like, there should be the same for wheelchair users, whatever your disability is. Just pumping out that content and just showing the world what's possible, because it
Completely
really does
agree.
inspire other wheelchair users to live a happier, healthier life through fitness. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Completely agree. One of my favorite things doing what I do is the whole whenever I get a message from like a mum or a young person with a disability, I love those messages of like, oh, thank you, you've really helped me in this area. And that's when, because oftentimes I think, particularly when you're focused so much on the social media side of things, when you're constantly putting out content and it's maybe not doing as well as you'd hoped, when you get those little messages, that's when you do sit there and go, actually, I'm doing something that's beneficial. It doesn't matter how many people this reaches. If I can help one person, then I'm doing something. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, it's tricky to try and disassociate from trying to get as many likes and follows and all that kind of stuff as
Yep.
possible. But it's when you start, I think that everybody that starts a social media presence like always falls into the trap of must get more likes, must get. But I think that the more you focus on that, the less that happens. And I think the more you
Yeah.
focus on like providing stuff that people find beneficial, you just grow naturally. You don't worry about who's liking it, what's like it. It's just like how is this benefiting the person who's watching? And I think that's where like you can grow and really actually help people is by actually helping them.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Completely agree that people get too wrapped up in the whole likes, comments, and shares. And to be fair, I say that, and I've been sucked in. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So yeah, it's a hard one. Going back to the fitness aspect of things, I know you've probably been asked this question a million times, but what is one piece of advice you'd give someone who's maybe newly injured or newly to the fitness world from a disabled person's perspective? What would be one piece of advice that you'd give?
Yeah, I think especially coming from like a disabled point of view, I think it is slightly different than the like what advice I'd give somebody else who wasn't disabled is basically just first of all find out what you can do. And just what can you do? What like movements can you do? Like what can you grip hold of? All this kind of stuff, and just have a play around, find out what you can do, and then find out what you like as well, and
Yeah.
just do something to start with. It doesn't have to be fancy. Definitely doesn't have to be perfect. My exercise routines are far from perfect because you can't be perfect when you're traveling and you haven't got a gym and all this kind. I don't have all the equipment and all that. Just do something. So like just get your body moving, get exercising. As long as it's safe as well, that's the main thing. Like just find out what you can do, then like find what you can enjoy, and then from there just keep building on it and just slowly building over time and just building those routines, those small little habits, and those that just builds and builds and builds. I think again people fall into traps of we want to do the perfect workout, we want to do the right thing and all that, but that doesn't come day one. Like
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
pick up a easel and a canvas and start painting the Mona Lisa.
yeah,
Like that takes
yeah,
time. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you got
Completely
to start
agree.
with your finger paints and
Yeah, I
you
think it's
or your crayons.
I think as well, coming like obviously both of us being involved in the fitness side of things, oftentimes that can come in as a lot when it comes to diet. Because a lot of the time when people talk of fitness and they talk of health, it's all to do with losing weight and being healthier. And I think oftentimes, and this goes for the general public and not just to say people, but it's a perfect analogy of it. Like people fall into the trap of they have one bad day on the diet and that's it, game over. I'm just going to eat the cake. I'm going to eat everything I can find. When, like you said, no one ever does it perfectly. Like I'll have days where I fall off my diet completely. It's gone completely pear shaped. But you get back on it the next day, and that's how you get back on it. And it's the same for when you're doing fitness. Like I remember the first time I tried anything. Like when the first time I did leg press. Oh my god, it was impossible. I had no chance. Like my feet were all over the place. My knees were folding in. I was sitting there going, I'm definitely going to injure myself doing this. But then now I've got myself to a point where I can do 100 kilo. Now, don't get me started on the fact that I can do 100 kilo, yet I still look like I've got a set of legs that are from chickens. That's another story. I still can't, but from a biological standpoint and a biology standpoint, I still don't know how that's happened and why that happened. But there you go. But then that just shows the progression of it. And I think as well, when you get involved with fitness as well, there's too much on how you look, and how you're going to be perceived by others. And unfortunately, that's a thing that disabled people face all the time. Of people don't know how to deal with disabled people, so they're like, oh, they stare at you, you're something different. And the same goes for when you're in a gym. The amount of times I've been looked at like, what is this guy doing in the gym? But then also the amount of times I've had some random guy come up, go, oh, you're an inspiration, you're amazing, you're this, you're that. And it's like, I'm just in the gym, I'm just doing the same as you're doing. um but it's about getting, like I say, it's getting that thought process of like, any progress is progress. So
Yeah,
even if it's the small steps, even if it looks weird, even if it's not quite right, you will get there in the end. The best thing is that you at least start. And also, I would say as well, speak to people. Speak to people. You find different ways. Like I'm very lucky that quite early on in my fitness career, I found trainers that were able-bodied, but they're willing to work with me to understand how my body works. And when, oh, so normally you would do this exercise and this is how you do it, but then you can't do that bit. So if we take this bit of this exercise, this bit of this one, and put them together, we should have something that does something. So that was the one thing I would say of like that fear of dealing with people in the gym. There are definitely some people out there that are willing to help, and as you say as well, Ben, there is plenty that you can do just at home. Just at home, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. I think that would be
yeah,
my advice.
yeah, and that's pretty much like the core. Like, if anybody goes on my YouTube channel or Instagram, very, very rarely am I using anything that a lot of the workouts like use a broom handle, for example, for cardio. Like it's not complicated. Like if I do use equipment, it's like a resistance band or a set of dumbbells, and this is something that you can go to Decathlon. Other stores are available, but you can you go to Decathlon, pick up a cheap pair of dumbbells, and get exercising or the resistance band. I think I picked one up for like £2.50 a resistance band. It's yes, it's still money, but it's not a huge expense to like get. Oh, now I can do loads of resistance exercises and I can improve my life, and like the quality of life you'll get from that £2.50 resistance band and following my workouts will it can be massively life changing. I have people that they've done my stuff, for example, and now they can put a t-shirt on by themselves. And it's like that might sound silly for
Yeah,
someone
no,
who, but that's could be life changing for somebody.
yeah,
It's like, oh, now when I get hot, I can take the t-shirt off. I don't have to like
yeah,
wait
yeah.
for somebody or ask somebody help, for example. So yeah, it's one of those things that the small things can make a huge difference, and you don't know what you're capable of until you start pushing your limits as well. So starting off small, building up, and then you might surprise yourself by what you can actually do.
Completely agree. And plus, then as well, you're reducing your chances of injury. Of like a lot of people go in, and they're like, oh, I must be able to like do this really hard thing. Whereas that's when people get it wrong because they haven't learned how to do it in the first place, and that's what can cause injury. So, like you say, hey, keep it simple, and like you've said as well, the equipment doesn't have to be expensive. Like the thing is, it might be a couple of pounds for some resistance bands, but those resistance bands will last you a good while, providing you don't do anything ridiculous with them, which I've seen other people do. Then they'll last you a while, and then, like you say, you can take them anywhere. Like you can pretty much use a resistance band pretty much anywhere. I think I've been. You've probably got some space to use them.
Yeah, I've literally got one next to me. They come with me everywhere. So they've been to 15 different countries, so it's not a problem. You can take them anywhere.
Coming on to the travel aspect, so I want the from the start to now. Where the fudge did this idea come from? Of like, right, me and Al are just gonna disappear. We're gonna just do it. Because the thing is, I think for me, like I've thought about it before, and I'm sitting there thinking, Jesus, there's so many things I need to consider of like accessibility of each country, how that's all gonna work, like the anxiety that would flow through me just at the sheer thought of going, do you know what? We're just going to do it. We're just going to do it and see what happens.
Yeah. So it's something that we've talked about for a while, like a big. Well, we wanted to do like a big trip at some point. And the aim was pre-COVID was to do a big Asia trip that lasted about 6 months. That was our original sort of goal. And then COVID happened, and you couldn't do anything at all. Obviously, in terms of traveling, you couldn't even leave your house at one point. So yeah, it was sort of like, okay, well, we can't do that now, but let's keep that in the back of the mind. Carry on doing what we're doing here there in the UK, and yeah, so that kind of was on hold as such whilst COVID was happening. For people that follow me for a while will know that a couple of years ago, still during COVID, but when we were sort of coming out of it, I had a flood in my flat. So the guy above set off a fire, set off the sprinklers, and had the water suppression of 45 flats come through my ceiling and basically just destroy everything I had. And yeah, so I was left with literally nothing. And yeah, so that was kind of like, okay, I guess got to find somewhere else to live temporarily whilst they're fixing this. And I got so through the insurance, I have a good insurance policy, which I now recommend to everybody to get good contents insurance, good house insurance. So yeah, they paid for me to stay. Well, I had to have something accessible. It was when people are coming out, so everybody's having staycations in the UK. So pretty much everywhere was booked. So the nearest place I could find that was accessible and had my needs was a hotel in London. And yeah, so I ended up spending 10 months in London with the only stuff that I had remaining, which was some clothes and my laptop. So I,
That's crazy.
so we,
I didn't
so we
see
were like,
that. That is crazy.
yeah. So we essentially had nothing and just had, what we had, what we could wear, and
Yeah.
what we could work with, and that was pretty much it. And over the course of those 10 months, we were like, we don't need all of that shit we've got at home.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, we don't even need half the stuff we've got here. Like, we still feel like we've got too much stuff almost. So we're like, so when we were doing this, we were like, well, that trip we were talking about, why don't we just, like, as soon as we can, like, just go and just do it, essentially. But we can just do it for longer. We don't have to have, like, an end date. We don't have to worry about, as long as we can afford it, that's the main thing. So yeah, we were like, okay, we're doing this, and we started the planning process. And then during the planning sort of process of it, I also proposed to Alice.
Yep.
So
That was one of my questions. It was coming.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit more. But yeah, then we got married in September last year, and then we left. Essentially, we sold the rest of our stuff that we didn't need anymore, like the stuff that did survive the flood. And then yeah, just went, and we are fortunate enough to, because of what I do, I know quite a few people around the world. So we've been connecting up with people, and first of all, we started in Singapore with some people I met through some charity work a couple of years ago. Stayed with them for a couple of weeks. Then we moved on to Bali. In Bali, the charity that we met them through is where we met these other people that live in Bali, and we stayed. And I did. It's a commune of disabled people that all live together.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so to say it briefly, basically in their culture traditionally, if you're disabled, it's considered that you must have sinned in a previous life because it's karma based. So there's a bit of shame around it, around the family. So often disabled people are hidden from public because they're a bit ashamed of it and they think that maybe there's some problems in the previous life. So the idea of the charity is to find these people, get them out of that sort of area and get them into sports and help them with education and stuff. So in 2019, I went to Bali, did some educational work based on sport and fitness and coaching. And I went back and then helped in their little commune that they've got there doing some fitness classes. And Alice did some teaching of English. So that's what we were doing in Bali for about a month, which is pretty awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, so a really good opportunity to help them out and in a different way rather than just like the YouTube videos and that. And then moved on to Australia after that, which is I have a lot of connection with Australia. I've got family out there. When I was a professional swimmer, I used to live out there as well, training. So yeah, it's quite a strong connection. So I stayed with my auntie, who I lived with when I was 19 before my accident, and spent we were meant to be spending a month, and then we ended up spending 2 months.
You're all that way. It makes sense.
yeah, it was too good to pass up, and looked after my cousin's house as well because he went home for Christmas. So he said, "Can you house sit for me?" So we ended up staying 3 months in total.
Wow.
So yeah, I know, hard life. And then after that, we'd done lots of work and lots of traveling, and it was kind of crazy. We had like the wedding, then a small honeymoon in Morocco, then sold all our stuff, then Bali, Singapore, Australia. We're like, we need a holiday. So we went to New Zealand, hired a car, went from the top of the North Island all the way to the bottom of the South Island. About 3,000 kilometers driving, which is pretty good. And it was a hand control car as well. So I did.
Ah, awesome.
I did 99% of the driving. Alice did the collection of the car, and that was it. And I was like, no,
that's amazing. Because that's one of my big bugbears when we travel. Me and Gina travel. It's like I am when we're at home. I am chief driver. Like I have the bigger car. I'm very. It was ingrained to. It sounds terrible, and I know it's really sexist, but it was ingrained into me when I was young that like the man does the driving. So it's always been something that I do. But then when we think of going traveling, we're like, I can't do any of it because most countries don't have the same support systems that the UK have of providing hand controls, and it's very hard to find companies like Proximo here in the UK that will rent you a car that's adapted to what you need. So like that's so New Zealand is one of the countries where you can do that. That's well cool.
Yeah, so the company Freedom Mobility in New Zealand, they're absolutely fantastic. They've got a whole fleet of cars all over the country, and they deliver it to where you are as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, we started off in Auckland, and we just met them there, and then drove it down to the bottom of the South Island, dropped it off in Wellington, and then took a plane over to the next island, and then picked up a different car, and then took it all the way down to Queenstown, and then back up. Yeah, and they were fantastic the whole time. Yeah,
mate, that's wicked. I mean, I'm going to take a quick back step, because I have quite a few questions about the Asia part of your trip. So, like you said about Bali being quite, the way they think of disability is quite negative of overall. They think that you've done something negative in a past life. So, did you find when you went outside of the group that you were in that you had a negative reception of the people, like the public around you and everything, or did you not really experience that?
no. So it's one of those things that, like, obviously within their culture and that say that, but the Balinese people are some of the nicest people on the earth. So it's like when you're with them and talking to them, and like they're more than willing to help. And I always say there's this sliding scale of accessibility to people willing to help, and it's like the more accessible a country is, the less help you're going to get.
I completely agree.
The less accessible is, they're like more willing to help. Like
Yeah.
they're like, we know it's shit here. Let's help you, sort of things.
Yeah.
Whereas in places that are more accessible, like it's not my problem. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You're
so
completely
friend of
right.
mine- yeah.
Completely right. Like I've said on the podcast before, been extremely lucky as a kid. Did some traveling when I was younger. One of the memories that I have is we were in India and we got to the beach, and my dad's looking at me like, "Shit, okay, we've got Charlie in a wheelchair, we've got a beach in front of us, but the sunbeds and the sea are miles away." And we're like, "Right, okay, what are we gonna do?" So Dad's like prepping to drag me down this beach. Next thing you know, these four Indian guys have just grabbed my wheelchair. No word of a lie, ran me down the beach. Like it was the fastest I think I've ever moved. It was crazy. But like you say, they were very open to like they were like, oh, if you need us again, like if you need the toilet or if you need to go somewhere, just come get us and we'll run you back up. And it's like you would never get that in London. London, you got no chance. Like London, everything's an inconvenience. Like you ask someone to get the ramp for the train, and it's like, so you want me to do what? And it's like, get the
Yeah.
ramp for the train, like.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like it's, and I think that's something you kind of have to experience, and like obviously as well. Like not everyone's being comfortable with carried down the beach, and I fully
Yeah.
understand that. But these countries aren't designed for it. Like so, you have to kind of go like, it is what it is here. Like
Yeah.
nothing's going to
Go with
change
the flow.
anytime soon. Like
Yeah.
so, you just have to just go with whatever if you want to experience that kind of stuff, and that can be quite anxiety inducing for some people. I can definitely imagine. Like I've been a few times where it's been like people have been offering to help and it's been a bit dodgy when like
Yeah.
I'm at like
Yeah.
45 degrees going down the stairs, sort of thing, being carried by people and they think they're stronger than they are. But at the same time, this is what traveling's all about. Traveling isn't easy. Like it's
Yeah.
and they say you go traveling to find yourself, and I think you go traveling to find out what you're capable of, what you can do, what you can't do, and what you're willing to put up with, and that as well. And for me, it's been absolutely incredible in terms of understanding what I need, like from an accessibility point of view. For example, like some of the best things I've done is because being in a wheelchair, I can't walk at all. Going to the toilet is obviously a tricky thing. Going like the two difficult things is going to the toilet and having a shower. That's pretty much the two most difficult things.
Literally, I was saying this the other day. All disabled people, we're obsessed with bathrooms. Show us a nice bathroom, and we get very excited.
Yeah. Well, that's most of my Airbnb searching is right. I don't care what it looks like. Where's the bathroom? I just know what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly me. That is literally me. I was flicking through like Booking.com, like, where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? And then we were talking about it the other day, saying that why is it they put like they'll put a photo of the shower, but it's literally just a photo of the shower head. It's really artistic, looks really pretty, but doesn't tell me anything about the actual bathroom. It's just a shower head.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I've spent many an hour. We've probably stayed in over 50 accommodations so far, and it's like it takes a couple of hours to find the right place. But the best thing I did was how can I go for a poo anywhere, basically. Like how can I if I was like stranded in a desert, how could I go for a poo here? Because if I could do that, then I can go anywhere. Probably not in the eyes of onlookers
Society.
looking at me.
Yeah.
In the confines of the home that I'm staying in, how can I go anywhere? So that's basically what I did. I learned how to go anywhere. So it doesn't, for me, like now the toilet is a non-issue. Like, as long as I can get in a bathroom to do it, I can go anywhere with the setup I've got. So then that's now become a non-issue. I don't need to worry about the toilet height. I don't need to worry about whether I can access it in that. So that's all okay now. So then the only thing that I need to focus on is, can I get to the shower? Because obviously I can't really do a portable shower unless I have a bed wash, and it's not really washing, is it? You don't get clean with a bed wash. So it's like then I'm only finding places that have got showers that I can get into, and it's just made life so much easier. And like the same with going for a wee as well. Like I have a system where I could wee anywhere, as long as I've got the things with me that I need to do that. So which is very minimal as well, because travel very light. So it's one of those things like how can I minimize everything to make it as easy as possible for transporting everything, but then also be able to do it everywhere. So just figuring out those things has been amazing, like real changer. It's opened up more options in terms of accommodation where we're staying, and it's also helped with just the stress of mornings and stuff like that. Like just eliminating that stress, because I know wherever I go, it's going to be the same routine. It's not going to have to figure out what's happening here, what's happening there. So it's just the same thing everywhere I go. It makes life a lot easier.
I mean, I'm kind of at the beginning of this journey. So this year I've done a lot more traveling around, all within Europe, so not very far. But then also I've been a lot more open to it. Kind of like you say, it kind of that whole. It's not perfect, but we'll figure it out. And that has, like you say, it's opened so many doors. Like one of my things is suddenly realizing that actually, if I have a flat shower tray and a chair that is able to get wet, showering is a non-issue because I'm quite lucky in the respect of like, so I can wait there and I can walk with the assistance of like Gina or someone. So like it's kind of that solved that issue. So providing there's a level enough shower tray and it's not a complete ice rink, which we have also experienced, then getting in the shower doesn't become a problem. I'm still yet to solve the toilet issue, so that one's one that I might pick your brain on, because one of the areas I was going to ask you about more of this is a bit of a selfish question, but one of the places that I'm hoping to visit in the next sort of year or so is Thailand. So what was your experience of Thailand overall as a disabled person?
Well, I've not been to Thailand, but I've
I
been
thought you'd
to.
been. I could have sworn you'd been.
I went to Vietnam,
Damn
so
it!
it's like right next to it.
I could have sworn you, but that's going to make this podcast look really bad. I could have sworn I would have put money on that. Oh shit! Okay,
Right. You know what?
scrap.
It made me feel better. About 4 or 5 different people have thought I've gone to Thailand. So,
Oh, okay, that's not just me then.
no, I went. The closest I went was Vietnam. So that's pretty. I went to Malaysia as well, right next door as well. So, yeah, they're
What
both
What
very
was
close.
Vietnam like?
Vietnam was possibly the worst place I've been to. Not bad.
Oh,
I
really?
should say not a bad place, but the worst place I've been to in terms of like just being able to get around. There is no like ramps to get in places and all that. That doesn't exist. But then you're going along the road and there's just like the earth's opened up. And it's just a crater like in the pavement sort of thing. You're like, well, how am I going to get around this? You go around a different way, and then you go around that way, and they put like bollards to block like mopeds driving on this pavement, which doesn't stop the mopeds, but it does stop wheelchair users.
Oh, wasn't that the place as well?
I can't go to this way.
Wasn't that the place as well where someone grabbed? Because I remember seeing that, and that was I thought that was Thailand because I remember seeing you basically trying to cross the road. Some guy was trying to help you, and he ended up hitting the accelerator on your front wheel attachment. Was that in Vietnam?
Yeah, that was in
Oh
Vietnam.
god.
Yeah, so was trying to cross this really busy road. In Vietnam, basically crossing the road is praying for your life and just going for it.
Yeah.
You just and hope they stop, and they always do. And I don't know how they have the awareness that you're crossing, because it doesn't seem like they will stop, and then they suddenly do, and you can get across. But it's pretty scary the first couple of times. So go across, and then the equivalent of like Uber driver on a moped. They call them grabs out there, but yeah, he was like, he's like, come on and help me. And then he was taking me across, and then he was like grabbing hold of the attachment, and I was like, it's okay, you don't need to touch it, and like just sort of shoot his hand away a bit. And he kept on doing it, and he kept on like grabbing the brake a couple of times, so I kept stopping. I was like, no, you're making it stop. So then we got across one part of the road, and then we went to go across another part. And then he grabbed the other side, which is where the accelerator was. And there's like 500 mopeds coming towards me at speed. And then I'm suddenly turned and going towards them at speed. And he didn't like let go. He just grabbed hold harder, which makes it accelerate more. And then and then must say I did kind of punch him a couple of times on the arm to get him off. And then eventually I had to punch him in the stomach to get him off, which I don't normally go around punching people, but
wow.
In this case, it was that or straight into moped or out of the wheelchair and being run over. So it was
wow.
It was him on me.
Oh man, I just can't like. It's that whole thing of don't touch something if you don't know what it does. Like, oh god. just when I saw that on Instagram, I was sat there like, yeah, that sounds like something that would happen to me. So it's nice to know I'm not the only one that something like that would happen to.
Well, I must admit, like, luckily, like the wheelchair, it went on to like off one wheel, but it was pretty stable, and I just sort of went round in a circle a bit. Alice sort of dropped the camera at the wrong moment. It was pretty good if she held on to it a bit longer to kept the full footage where I was okay because we thought it was funny. That's why we posted it.
It was funny. It was funny. As I say, it was kind of like that's how. Like I say, for me, it was something that I looked at and went, "That's something that would happen to me." So I found it very funny because it was kind of like, at least I'm not the only one. But I think a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, are you okay?"
I didn't say anything about it. I was like, "Yeah, no, I am okay." Probably should have told you that.
Yeah. Full disclaimer, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. No, it was an experience, and it's just something that will go in the book one day. Something that will tell the grandkids. So
it's amazing. I mean, I say I love the fact of watching you guys do it because it's something that I've debated doing. It's just the financial aspect of trying to figure out how it all works and getting that to happen. But going back to like you traveling with, obviously you've traveled with your front wheel attachment and traveled with obviously wheelchair and stuff like that. How has that been? Because there's been obviously a lot of talk about right to fly and damage to people's mobility equipment. How has that journey been for you so far, having traveled to like 15 countries?
Yeah, so I've got a method in place that I need to properly put this in like a thing because I never seem to have any issues with flying. The main issue is the battery for the wheel, and like explaining to people that it's okay. Like that usually has to go through 2 or 3 people, but I'm expecting that every time I get to an airport that the person on the desk isn't going to know what this battery is, and it's going to go to the manager, and that's going to go to their manager, and eventually they're going to be like, "Oh no, it's okay." So that's the first thing. I've got. It's got a sticker on it. I show them the sticker. It says the watt hours, which is under the limit. And I'm like, this is the limit. Here's the website. So I've got it already. It's like, here's the website. Here's the thing. I understand that they know because everyone knows at the moment. So that's the only issue that I ever find. And I think the main thing for me is that I always make sure that I'm in my wheelchair for as long as possible. So I always make sure that my chair goes with me to the plane door. And I think where a lot of issues happen is that where wheelchairs are damaged is that if you get off, like when you check in, for example, like that wheelchair is going to go through 20, 30 people's hands, and you're not going to know whether it's the, who's going to, who cares, like who's going to care about it is going to be it's going to go through the person at the desk, and it's going to go to somebody who just works at the airport who's just no association to the airline, whatever, then that's going to go to the baggage handler that's going to go through like 10 different baggage handlers, then going to get to the bloke who's going to put it on the plane. So it's like, let's cut that down to as few people as possible. So whenever I get to an airport, I'm always like, I have to stay in my wheelchair. I always just say it's for medical reasons, and I'm not going to explain why. And that cuts out all the other additional questions. Like, it's for medical reasons, and I don't want to explain why. And that just helps streamline the process a bit. So go through all the scanning and all that kind of stuff, checking the bags, everything, and get packed down, all that kind of stuff. And then waiting in there, still in my wheelchair, still with a tri-ride attached as well, not letting go of that. I say it all stays together. All the way to the plane door. And then at the plane door, take the tri-ride off, transfer onto the aisle seat. And then whilst I'm doing that, Alice puts the tri-ride back together on the wheelchair, so it's all one unit. And then I know that what's going to happen now is the person who's escorting me there, he or she is the only person that's going to touch this wheelchair before it goes underneath, because it's going to go in a special compartment. And they say, and because it's bigger, because I've got the attachment on, it goes in its own compartment with nothing else. So it goes, one person takes it to there, puts it in, and then all I've got is the one person who I've stared at and been like, don't you mess this up, because I've got your name badge now. And
that's
basically
really
just be like, you're part of it. And then make them feel guilty about it.
Really interesting, because I have a difference. So up until that last stage, my system was very similar. So like, don't get me started on the whole battery shenanigans everyone does know what the hell a battery is. Especially because my battery for my attachment, it looks like a battery. Like, I don't know how else. I don't know what else for me to tell you. So I do the whole thing, as you say. You tell them the wattage, tell them power, and it's always causes confusion because you have to go through like 3 managers. What frustrates me the most this far is most of the airlines that I've travelled with, I have phoned up and told them the wattage of my battery, what I'm travelling with, every bit of equipment I can. So I'm like, I've already pre-warned you a month before I'm flying, and I still get asked that every time. And I'm like, and what I love the most is it's always on the way back. I found that my local airport doesn't give a shit. They're like, yeah, crack on, carry on, do what you got to do. Soon as I'm coming home, no, they're like, what? No, you can't bring this through. I'm sitting there like, I've already brought it with me here. Like, I don't know what, like, I'm allowed to take it home. But then the other thing I was going to say was that when you said like you keep it together, so this was my theory. I've seen a lot of people get their attachments damaged. Now, I actually pack my attachment down, and my attachment goes in with the luggage. So what happens for me is I pack mine down. It goes in this extra large bag, goes in with a load of padding, goes in with a load of bubble wrap. Then it goes under. So my theory was that at the stage that you said, like, oh, that the guy picks it up or the guy does this, that was my theory was that was where it all went wrong, because that's where someone's gone, oh, I've seen this guy take them apart, so then they must come apart, and then they try pulling it, press the wrong button, and that's where the issue comes. So it's really interesting to see that you haven't had any issues, but we've seen with, I think it's Sophie Morgan, had loads of issues with BA doing the same. From what I can understand, she had the same system of keeping everything together. So it's really interesting how so many people have different experiences. I, like you, touch wood, haven't had any like major issues when it comes to flying. It's more just like minor inconveniences of things taking longer, people asking me ridiculous questions, and that's pretty much it. Or like a new bumps appeared on my wheelchair, and I'm like, that had more paint on it last time I saw it, but it still works. So that's really interesting that you keep it together all the way to the gate. That's I don't think I'd have the bottle to do that.
It's in fact what the guy, the people at TriRide recommended to me. They said that they've had no issues when they've done it that way as well. So I just followed their advice, and then it's so far so good. Like, as I say, like, taken quite a few flights now, even before this big trip, and this is the first time I've taken the TriRide, but yeah, I've never had any issues. And then also as well, getting off the plane as well, I always make sure that the wheelchair is going to. So usually at that point, what I do is talk to the flight attendants and say to them, like, I need this wheelchair here after the flight, because then they will communicate with the ground staff to bring it up. Or sometimes, like, even one of them have gone down to do it, to escort it up. And I said, I need to be on it. And then again, it's for medical reasons, and I'm not going into it. And then that just stops any questions going further.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things.
One of my favourite things, sorry, I think there's a bit of a delay. One of my favourite things recently, because I put out a post saying, with the Right to Flights thing coming out, what's people's thoughts on it, what's like people's recommendations. And one guy came out to me and was like, whatever you do, your equipment comes with you on the flight. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, are you telling me because I've seen it before, like loads of people travel with their like tri-rides and stuff on the plane, and I'm like, that's great. I just couldn't be asked for the argument. I mean, the tri-ride and the attachments cause enough confusion as it is, let alone me being like, no, it's coming on the plane, I don't care, it's coming with me.
So from my limited research, I think it's only for American flights you can take a wheelchair on a plane. Like, I have read that somewhere. How much of that is true, how much of it's been updated since I read it, but I'm fairly sure, because I've seen people like, oh, I just fold down my wheelchair and I put it in the overhead compartment. So first of all, that's like one wheelchair in the world that can do that. And then second of all, like Ryanair's not going to do that, for example.
No,
I'm not going to crap on them too much, because I actually really do think Ryanair do a great job. But they're not going to allow me to bring my wheelchair on board. They've already got a system in place. They're not going to.
On that note,
I'm fairly sure. Sorry,
Ryanair. Sorry, that was my bad. Right, on that note, I'm curious because Ryanair is one of the airlines that I've kind of steered clear from because of the confusion that they cause with like their baggage allowances and everything else. So my theory was, if you can't get that right, how the fuck are you going to get a wheelchair right? So what's been your experience of Ryanair?
So, like, they are the easiest company to work with if you're a wheelchair
Wow.
user.
Okay, I stand corrected. Okay.
Like, and I'm sure people have had other experiences, but if you book a flight through their website, you don't have to talk to anybody when booking your wheelchair in. It's all tick boxes, and I've never had I've never had been like emails back and forth like what does it weigh, what does it blah, blah, blah. It's just like it's all on the website, a form that you just fill in. You just fill it all in, and then you get to the airport, and they already know. And it's like,
That's
well,
awesome.
that's just so much easier than just having
Yeah.
to like go
Yeah.
right. Okay, like even with like the big airlines, like I've been with Emirates, Qatar, all of those kind of like big Middle Eastern airlines, and it's like you do it, you say you're a wheelchair user, and then you get an email, and you go like, "Can you fill out this form?" And then you have to fill out the form, send it back, and then they give you back. It's like, "Can you give us this?" And it's back and forth, and it's just like this is wasting my life.
Yeah,
Talking
no,
about
I completely agree. Like the thing I find with the forms, because I recently had it with if I'm traveling with Lufthansa. So I recently realised that they've got a form that you do the same. You fill it out and you do this, 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 this. But the problem is, a lot of the time, a lot of the time I've travelled with my attachment, they get really confused because when I'm like, no, the wheelchair itself is manual. This is electric. That's what they get really confused. Then when I'm filling out those forms and the options are, is your wheelchair manual or electric? I'm like, well, it really depends on who you speak to. Because technically, if you're going by my insurance for my wheelchair and my attachment, they are considered as one unit as an electric wheelchair. So it's a bit of a grey area. So that's why I don't do the forms because I'm like, I don't know what to put. I can't really like to most airlines. If I put uh, RGK wheelchair with Rio Mobility wheelchair attachment, they're going to go, what the hell is one of those? So
I just say it's a
always,
powered wheelchair
I always
now.
bring up,
Okay.
always.
Yeah, I always just say it's a power wheelchair, and then when they see it, go
That makes
like,
sense.
"Well, what's that?" I go, "Now I'm going to tell you because I can't bother to tell you earlier because I'm just
Yeah,
going to. I
yeah,
always know I'm going to get asked again when I get to the airport. So I'm like, just get me on the plane, and I'll explain the rest when I get there."
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've done it before. Like the thing, I've done it before where it caused confusion because I did that. I said it was a manual, so I said it was a manual chair. I got all the way through to the aircraft, and then the air hostess comes up to me and she goes, "Have you got a battery with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, here you are, here you are." And then she kind of took it off, wrote down the numbers, and came back. And I was like, "Maybe I should just do that. Maybe I should just stay quiet and not tell anyone." Not that I recommended that because I guarantee most airlines will have an issue with that. But it's the one problem I want to solve is how can we cause less confusion for those that are traveling with like additional attachments, whether that be powered attachments or something different. It's just I don't get why it's so confusing. It's not rocket science. But there you go.
Yeah, I think it's just. I think the other thing as well is every airline is different. Like
Mm.
that's like you've got to figure out what they want to know, basically. And it's just like
Yeah.
right, time to get my
Cheat sheet.
Indiana
Yeah.
Jones on and just try and
Yeah.
figure out this treasure map of their website to
Yeah.
try and figure out what the access needs are.
The terrible thing is, I have a Google Doc on my phone that has the measurements of all of my equipment, the weight of all my equipment, a photograph of my battery for my front wheel attachment, a photograph of me using my front wheel attachment when attached. So they go, "What is it?" And I can go, "That." Literally, it's just the stupid planning that you have to do. Although the one sub benefit of the way I pack my attachment down is I've realised when you pack your attachment into a bag, it's very much like, from what I can understand, the same rules as when you travel with a golf bag, which is no one gives a shit how much that thing weighs. So the amount of times I'm like, Gina's like, "Oh, I really want to take this jacket," and I'm like, "Just stick it in with a gizmo. It's fine." Like, no airline seems to be bothered. I don't know what it is, and I'm probably going to get told off for it at some point. But literally any airline that I've thrown with this far, I go, "Oh, it's medical equipment," and they go, "Okay," and
Yeah,
that's it. End of the conversation.
A lot of the so technically you're allowed medical equipment on board with you, and I during some research on that, I found that there is no weight limit to your medical equipment you can bring on board.
Just
no
rock up
limit.
100 kilos. Just
So, but it has if it's medical, it has to cut you could obviously your wheelchair and that would go underneath, but the stuff you need to take on board. So you just taking this huge bag, not full of Alice's clothes, obviously full of all my medical equipment on board. So,
I just love that. Like, it's just funny because as you sit there thinking, how many times I phone up different airlines and they're like, "How much does your wheelchair weigh?" And I'm like, 5 kilo, XYZ, blah blah blah. And then that of airlines, I go, "Oh, do you not want to know the weight of my attachment?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, great. Why do you need the weight of my 5 kilo wheelchair, but not my like 20 kilo attachment?"
Yeah.
work that one out. Anyway, that's enough about traveling with attachments. I want to dive into how did you and Al meet? Because that, like, you guys are just like a perfect fit. You guys just seem to work, and then the whole travel aspect comes into it, and you guys are just, how did that all come about?
So the short answer is that we met through a mutual friend, somebody I used to used to swim with, and Alice used to work with. But a bit of a longer story with it, which is quite interesting, is where I used to live was an assisted living building. It's all set up for wheelchair users or elderly people. So there's a mix of ages and ability levels that lived in it. But essentially, it was designed so you could live there independently as a wheelchair user. And Alice's business is senior companionship. So it's like not care work, it's looking after, taking them out for coffee, taking them out for fun trips and all that kind of stuff. So it's just keeping these elderly people, keeping them occupied, keeping them in, doing the things they want to do. So she used to have a client in my building, same floor but the opposite side of the building. And she had that client for 3 years before we met, and she used to go 3 times a week, and not once did we bump into each other that whole time. And if you've seen Alice, she's not hard to miss. She's 5'10", blonde, and extremely gorgeous. So it's like I probably would have noticed her before. So we definitely didn't bump into each other. And she used to come up in the lift that literally came outside. The lift doors opened and my flat door was there. And she used to use that lift all the time. Not once in 3 years did we bump into each other.
That's crazy.
And it was only through our mutual friend that we were introduced, because they were talking about, the mutual friend was talking about me to Alice, and then Alice said she wanted to meet me, and then they arranged it, and sort of went from there, sort of thing. And it was like, "Oh, you live there? Oh yeah, I work there." It's like, wait, what? And then it's just like, and then since then we've both said like we probably both weren't in the position to meet each other then. So actually meeting each other when we did was probably the right thing, because we were in the position where we were ready to meet each other. So it was almost serendipitous that we met each other when we did. It was, and it's been great ever since. So, that's because we're married now. So
I was gonna say, how long you guys? I know obviously you recently got married, but how long have you guys been together?
It's been a while now. It's been since 2017. So
what's that?
It's
that's
quite a while now.
That is cool. When was me and Gina? Now you're testing me. When was Gina? Me and Gina was. Oh my god! I can't believe my brain's not working. I will put it here, but I know the worst thing is I know the month and I know the day. I just can't figure out the year. We've been together 6 years. So what's that? You're gonna help me count back now, Ben. 2017. So about the same. Is that about the same? That's right. Yeah. See, I can do maths under pressure.
No, when you get over 30, you forget what age you are. So. Luckily, I was born in 1990, so it's easy to figure out how old I am. But it's sometimes
nice square numbers.
So, what year is it? How old am I?
The worst thing is, so I'm on my laptop and I will put this in. So Gina's just WhatsApped me saying it's 2017, it's on your bloody necklace. There you go. So I've just got in trouble. So I'm probably not going to be spoke to for this evening. So happy days. On a happier note, so your wedding photos would look awesome. Tell us a bit more about like diving into your wedding. Like obviously your story was very like hectic. You went from married, honeymoon, let's just travel the world. Like that's quite a big jump.
Yeah, so for our wedding, we never wanted to have a big sort of wedding with hundreds of people there and just be exhausted by talking to people all day. So we decided that the best thing to do was to get married abroad and limit the numbers to the people that are coming. So in total, there was 20 people. So 20 people, including me and Alice, there. So very small,
Nice.
just our immediate family and a few very close friends. And yeah, so we basically rented an Airbnb, a chateau in the south of France,
Nice.
and for what was that, three nights there, and basically just it was big enough to have everybody in there, so everybody stayed in the same chateau for 3 nights, and yeah, we just had a big crazy party
Awesome.
basically for three 3 days,
Yeah.
and we basically drunk the supermarket dry of
Yep.
its alcohol supply, and it had a
Yep.
pool, and the weather was perfect, and it was just really. It was like we were in like this bubble as well, which was really nice because the chateau was on top of a hill, miles away from everything, and yeah, it was really nice. And although that sounds expensive, it was way cheaper than a wedding in England. Our
Yeah.
rent for the 3 nights was cheaper than renting a barn for half a day in the UK. So
That's crazy. Yeah, that is
yeah,
crazy.
it was a lot better. So yeah, it was pretty good, and it was just nice. Like the place wasn't accessible at all, but it looked great in photos, so it was the main thing. And
No, you're braver than me. I would not have had that. I'm like, look, if I'm getting married, no, I'm not having an accessible wedding. That's ridiculous.
well, we know how usually the man carries the wife across the threshold. That's kind of the
Yep.
tradition.
Yep.
So my friend, who's a very strong guy, he carried me up 3 flights of stairs and across the threshold and put me on the bed. So when it was all said, so yeah, that was pretty.
And that was
cool.
after a few beers as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my being carried across the threshold instead.
That's mad. I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I don't know. That conversation would have been so different with me and Gina. Of like, no, I couldn't. I could not have had my wedding. Also, I just sit there and think, if I'm drinking alcohol, like my rule is, if I'm drinking alcohol, I need access to an accessible toilet. Like I can manage like day to day. If I can't get access to a disabled toilet, that's fine. But if alcohol's involved, no, a disabled toilet is a must. Because once you break the seal, that's it. Game over.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like I've learned to wee anywhere, so I just
There you go.
irreverent.
Problem solved. um, so coming back to like more about the like into the disability space with all the stuff that's happening within the several communities, such as like with the we spoke about earlier the rights to flights thing. There's a lot happening on terms of how disabled people are identified, how people like to be known. What's the next big challenge that we should be tackling? What's your? I know that's a very broad question, but what I'm trying to ask is basically, with everything that's happening within the disabled community, do you think we're going in the right direction with everything, or do you think that we need to strip it back a little bit and almost start with one thing, get that right, and then move on to the next, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say there as well. It's quite interesting and something that is something. So I will premise this that I never say that I'm a disability advocate or like I don't. That's it's not my area of expertise. Like I always focus on disabled fitness. Like that's like my number one thing, and there's people out there that are way better than me at talking about it, researching about it, and all of that. And I kind of most of the time I'm like, this is these people; they know what they're talking about, rather than
Yeah.
me. Just because if I start focusing on too many things, then the problem is that I start not focusing on the fitness side of things. So for me, I just try and keep my focus narrow. But it is obviously I'm disabled and I am in the world, so it's obviously something that I have to think about. Is forced onto me as such just by
Yeah.
existing. For me, it's more just I think making things like accessible, but not because like in the UK, for example, like most places you can get into nowadays, can't you? Like you can get
Yeah.
into most buildings you can get into. Like there's obviously some that you can't. It's slowly changing for the positive, and I'll just focus on like the UK because I'll be here for hours if I talk about the rest of the world as well because it's very different to the UK. But like
Yeah.
having the like it's like okay, like we're pretty much on top of it. Let's keep it going with like making places accessible. But I think focusing on making sure experience is accessible because like for me, like one of the things I focus on, I do a little bit of consultancy work with the fitness space as well. Is I'll go to a gym and I'll talk to them about talk to the higher ups like, oh yeah, we've got a disabled toilet and there's a lift there and there's a ramp to get in the front door and the ones that have got steps and I'm like, that's great. I don't come to the gym to go to the toilet. I come to the gym to work out.
Yeah.
What's the experience like? And oh, well, I don't know. That's basically kind of the response I get. So, for me personally, like it's making sure like the experience is accessible. Like I bit like when we were living in London, like we love going to the theatre and to shows and all that kind of stuff. And they'd be like, right, yeah, we've got a spot for you. Here it is, and then you sit there and you're like, well, I can only see half the stage. Like, I didn't like I'm paying the same as like all these people that I'm sat next to, but I can't see quite as well. Or like it's on a ramp down, and I'm like trying to balance, trying to like stay upright. I'm like, and just making experiences accessible. So for me, that's where I try, when I do go into the realm, and it's mostly in the fitness and gym space,
Yeah.
is to make sure that those experiences are accessible. And I think with that, it's one of these things that you don't know what's the problem unless you are disabled, unless you're some weird savant that just knows that what should be there. But most of the time, like talk to us, work with us. The disabled people know what we need. Like let's work. Have us in the planning stages. Have us making sure that we can get the experiences because they're like, great, we've got this ramp. You can go in. You can go to the toilet. Here it is. Like you maybe going to watch a sports game. You're like, right, here you are, and there's like a pillar in front of you. Like, great, staring at a pillar.
Been there. That was when I went to the Emirates Stadium. That was me. I was watching. Luckily, I was watching a concert. I wasn't watching the football, but I did go. If the ball goes up in the air, you're not going to be able to see anything because it's just a concrete pillar. But coming back to like I think you've hit the nail on the head of like it's a really interesting perspective about talking about experience, how a disabled person experiences a certain service or a certain thing. Like, funny enough, linking into what we spoke about just now, one of the things I've thought about recently, having been to quite a few weddings recently, is like everyone when they have a wedding, often not everyone, but a lot of people use the honeymoon suites. Now, honeymoon suites, great idea, but then when I sit there and think, if I ever want one, am I going to be able to use it? Most likely not, because it's not going to be the accessible room because God forbid a disabled person gets married. But then, like I said, then you're missing out on the experience of that thing or that certain space when actually it's one of the hotel's designated spaces if you're getting married, but then you're not able to access it. And it's things like that that I think companies need to consider a lot more about these big like these like focused spaces, whether it be for a wedding, whether it be for a sporting event, or whether it be, I don't know, you're going on a safari and the best place to stay is this one log cabin. If I can't access it, then I miss out on part of the experience, which then means I don't get the full value as you spoke about earlier, which then a whole other argument starts. So as I say, it's looking at that through process, as you said, getting us in at the beginning, getting us in throughout the whole process, because then we can guide you through. And I think as well, a lot of the time when it comes to accessibility requirements, too many people think it's expensive. When actually, if you strip it back, a lot of it's inexpensive. And I always say it's like nightclub analogy. Why aren't more nightclubs got ramps in? Because everyone's pissed anyway. They can't walk straight anyway. So why can't we just have a ramp? So a lot of the time, like, no one's ever going to complain about like having a hill or a ramp or a lift. No one's ever going to go, oh, I can't do that. No one ever. No one goes, oh, do you know what I love? A set of stairs. No one ever. Think about it. How many times have you been in a lift and you're like, well, half of you lot don't need to be in here because I've literally seen you running. It's just like I one of the things I remember once. I was at a horse racing event, and I'm waiting outside the stable toilets, and no word of a lie, Phil Tufnell walks out of the stable toilets. And it's moments like that you sit there and you do wonder and you go, what the hell? But then, like I say, no one, it's about making it inclusive. Coming back to my original point, it's about making it inclusive for everyone. And if it is inclusive for everyone, then you're making your target audience as big as possible, which then surely makes your business better and more profitable. In theory, I mean, there is the whole thing of like using a niche and drilling down into your niche, but no one. It's a bit. It's a bit of a shitty niche to be like, oh, we only cater for able-bodied people. Like
Yeah,
that's not a
it's
great.
like if you make every bathroom accessible, then accessibility isn't an issue, and
Yeah.
nobody's going to get to it. And you've probably seen them. There's some very, very nice accessible toilets out there that I've worked with a company called Omnipods, and they have a bathroom that you can make accessible, but then you can also like take away the railings as well. You can take away the
That's
handles, like
awesome.
they just clip on and off. So it's like, oh, we've got disabled guests, let's clip them on. We haven't got disabled guests, let's take them off, and then it's just, oh, we've got a wet room. Like it's just
That's
like nobody
amazing.
goes into a wet room and go like, I wish I'd had a bath to stand in while I have my shower. Like
Yeah,
nobody's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's
No,
just
exactly. A lot of the inclusivity, like no one's going to complain with. A lot of the time, like as I say, people are lazy. So most people go, "Oh, that's great." Like, could you imagine if we went everywhere and then everywhere you went had an automatic door? Do you think
yeah,
anyone would ever complain and go, "Oh, do you know what I really miss? Opening a really heavy door."
yeah.
No, it doesn't happen. But
No.
yes. Anyway, I'm very conscious of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit you with the last question, which I ask every guest, which is what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with? It doesn't have to be disability related. It's more of like a pet peeve, something that really winds you up, or something that you're really passionate about, that you want to see change, or something along that line. Yeah. So, what is one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
Well, I've been thinking about this in the back of my mind since you asked me before we started, and it's really difficult because for me, like literally everything, I'm pretty chill with most things. Like I just sort of like, you know what, it's fine, whatever. So I think the most thing is I'm going to make it more specific, and then I'm going to broaden it out a bit. But like
Yeah,
when people
no
say
worries.
like about like pineapple on pizza, it's just like, does it matter? Like, does it really matter if somebody likes it or not? Like, I
Yeah,
don't care. Like, I'm not going to be there watching somebody eat it, like, or not. Like, if they want to have it, they can have it. And it's the same with like anything. Like, just like, does it really matter? Like,
yeah.
doesn't matter if somebody likes something or don't like it. It's fine. Like, just there's more there's bigger things to worry about than that.
I think the thing is, I completely agree with that because it's like I say, it's no one go like that's like when people get really funny. Like I don't like mushrooms, but I wouldn't be like, I mean, don't put it on my food that I'm going to eat. But if you
Hmm.
want them, you have them. Go ahead. Like I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. But then it's similar things like that when I think coming back to the question earlier, and I know you've already said your point of view on it, but it links in quite nicely with my point of view when it comes to disability. Of oftentimes when we're talking advocacy and we're talking pushing for different things, that's where I often end up of like I say, have we not got bigger fish to fry? Like there are certain aspects of disability advocacy that I'm like, I completely get it, and if we were doing everything else, great, yeah, by all means tackle that area. But when I sometimes look at it, I'm like, should we not focus on the fact that people can't get into employment? There's inaccessible housing. Should we not focus on that people can't even get on a train? People are getting left on aeroplanes. Not to mention, there's just so much to it. But then that's when I do come back and think we got to drill down a lot more. But yeah, coming back to your point, pineapple on pizza's fun. Like it's, I mean, I like it. So like, shoot me now, cancel me now. It's fine. Pineapple on pizza's fine. But no, I do agree. Like people just need to calm down and chill out.
Yeah.
Calm down, chill out. Particularly when it comes to food. Like guys, if you don't want it, don't bloody eat it. Like it's pretty self-explanatory. But anyway, I always give my guests a chance to plug themselves. So obviously you're doing your amazing travels. You're doing a lot to do with the fitness space. Let people know where they can find you, what you're working on. If you're excited about a project or something that you specifically want people to get behind, now's your opportunity to shout and scream about it.
Yeah, so if you want to follow my lifestyle stuff, fitness, all that kind of stuff, sorry, I'll restart. If you want to follow the lifestyle and the travel and all that kind of stuff, you want to follow my page of Alice, which is Ali and Benji, and I'm sure Charlie will put it in the wherever it needs to be, with all the underscores and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to follow like the fitness side of stuff, it's at Adapt to Perform. And with that, there's so much stuff on YouTube. I think I've got like over 400 hours of exercise stuff on YouTube.
That's crazy.
So you won't go wrong with that. And then I've got thousands of posts on Instagram as well, with lots of information. But I'm always updating it and making it better all the time. And I will say at the moment, I do have a premium version of what I do, which is my membership site, which is essentially what I do, but better. So it's a online membership platform. And basically just I hold your hand all the way through your fitness journey. So telling you what to do on each and every day. So you don't have to worry about, what am I doing today? What's this focus? What can I do? What can I do? I will show you exactly what you have to do on every day. And at the moment, I've got a summer sale, and it'll probably still be going when this comes out. Yeah. So yeah, you can head over to my page. All the information's over there. But there's a summer sale. So there's a code that's FREE50. That's FREE50, and that will get you 50% off your first year as well. So you can join up on that.
That's awesome.
It's pretty awesome. So yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Ben. It's been a great conversation. I feel like we could speak for hours. I mean, I could ask you so many questions about the travel thing. I could be here all day. But thank you so much for coming on.
Once I've done a bit more, we can have another chat.
Yeah, you can take me on a guide through every country up in the world.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much, Ben. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite Podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast.